I will be recording this session just so that we have something for folks to reference in the future and we can put on our website or LinkedIn or whatever for anyone who couldn't make it here today. So welcome. My name is Janice, if we have not had the opportunity to meet yet, and I am the manager for the Edmonton Regional Innovation Network. And what we're here to chat about today is our Community Initiatives Fund. So this is a fund that we have had here in Edmonton now, and Edmonton and region for, I think this is our sixth year of it. And the purpose of this fund is to provide some support to initiatives that are going on in our region for that support entrepreneurs in the innovation ecosystem and ecosystem development. And I'm going to get a little bit into all the nitty-gritty details of that for you. What I will say is that if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask. I'll stop periodically so that we have an opportunity to just double check and see that there aren't any questions. But just happy to, jump in, raise a virtual hand, raise your real hand, put it in the chat, whatever works for you. So here we go. Okay, so the Community Initiatives Fund is for community initiatives that are entrepreneur-focused activities that reflect and support the goals and values of the innovation community by addressing the needs, such as, and this is not an exhaustive list, networking, visibility, and learning. So these initiatives can look like a lot of different things, and that's the wonderful part about this fund is that we are actually looking for things that are new and different, unique, serving different groups, having a different reach than just your average sort of events and programs that are currently happening. So they can be anything from an event, it can be a series of workshop, it can be a one-day workshop, it can be, we do want these to be wherever possible collaborative opportunities. Can be single day, it can be multi-day. It really, there is no prescription in terms of what that has to look like. And as we go through this session, I will provide some examples of things that we've funded in the past, just so I feel like that's a really simple way for people to get a better understanding of how this looks. But I also want you to know that just because I'm giving these examples doesn't necessarily mean that they're the things that you have to do. We really do love things that are unique and different. So we do have a subcommittee that takes care of all the decisions for this fund. So I am a part of that subcommittee, but I am an ex officio member, so I do not make any of the decisions on the fund. We have 6 folks who are sort of the stewards of this part of our ERIN funding. If you want to know who they are on our website, so www.edmontonrin.com.ca. Michael will put it in the chat. And you can see who those folks are. They do not accept gifts or bribes, so you can say hello to them, but keep things above board. So just as a really quick overview of our mission and vision. So this is the ERIN's mission and vision. So our overall mission is to connect and strengthen the innovation ecosystem in the greater Edmonton area. And collaboration, like I said earlier, is really key to this growth and support. And so we are looking specifically for ways that different organizations, different groups of people, different individuals are coming together to do things that will support the innovation ecosystem. And by doing this, we sort of work towards our vision, which is to build a thriving greater Edmonton innovation ecosystem where entrepreneurs, businesses, and communities succeed together, give back, and inspire future generations. And I do see that there's a question in the chat about do these initiatives have to be in Edmonton or a series of workshops in various communities? Yes, and also. So these can be initiatives that occur in the Edmonton core area, or in our region. So our region also encompasses all of the outlying municipalities and counties. So we have out to Sturgeon County, Lamont County, Parkland County, Sturgeon County, Strathcona County, and Leduc County. So sort of that all-encompassing area around Edmonton is part of that region. And so we are looking for things that will um, impact the innovation entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs out in those regions as well. So it can be both, or it can be one. The key, and I'll get into this in a little bit, is to be able to look at the current offerings, what's happening in the ecosystem in terms of events, initiatives, programs, workshops, all that type of thing, and identify where there is a need, where maybe a community is not being served or a specific topic is not being addressed, and addressing that need through your initiative. And that, like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later because it's part of the scoring process for the grant application. So this year we have, we're doing things a little differently. We have two streams available currently. We are working on a third stream, which will be a larger fund, but open for admission or applications right now is both a micro sponsorship fund. So these are grants up to $1,000. And we have $10,000 for the year, and the applications will stay open. It's a forever, well, not forever, but it's an ongoing intake until the money is completely dispersed for the year. And for this, and again, I'll go into the details a little bit more in a minute, but this is really around, looking to sponsor at a smaller level. What has happened in the past is that we have folks who don't necessarily need up to $10,000. Maybe they need $500 to sponsor a table at an event, or, $1,000 to sponsor some food or coffee or something like that. It's something that they're doing. Rather than making them apply and fill out a big long application plus a big long post-initiative report for a small amount of money, we wanted to create something that was a little more flexible, and quick responding and less onerous for the smaller amount of money. So these are designed to be like you apply within 30 days, you get a response, and we're off and running. So that, like I said, will be open until the money is completely dispersed. And then we have our second stream, which is the impact stream. So this is for your larger events and initiatives up to $10,000. And so these are more for those large community events with big impact. So if you stop to think about, we're making the application easier on the smaller amount of money. Likewise, the outcomes report is much more simplified. When we look at something where we're giving up to $10,000, the application is a bit more rigorous and the outcomes report is more involved, and we look for a lot more KPIs, and we ask you to develop some custom KPIs as well. So when you're looking at which one to apply for, really consider your time, your ability. It is the general way of doing things that if there's $10,000 available, apply for the 10,000, because the worst you could say is no. But I would really encourage you to think a lot about spending the funding in a way that is cost effective, and really considering what the right stream is for you, and thinking about, these dollars will be available next year and the year after for sure. We have funding for 3 years. So maybe this is something that you can build upon through multiple applications over the years. So for either of the streams, there are some basic eligibility requirements. It must be hosted in the Edmonton region, so that encompasses all those outlying municipalities that I talked about. So it doesn't have to be right in Edmonton, but it has to be in our region. The map is on our website if you're completely unsure if what you're doing falls within our region, or you can always just ask. I'm happy to help with that. You have to be a member of the ERIN in good standing. Membership is completely free, and there is a place on our website where you can submit an application. You can be, this is a question that we get a lot, is do we need to be not-for-profit? As an applicant, you can be either not-for-profit or for-profit. If you are for-profit, we ask that you look to partner, collaborate with a service provider or a post-secondary institute. And we also your application will be scrutinized as to how the impact to the community outweighs the impact to your business. The committee will ask questions and look for things like, is this just to drive their own membership? Is this to get people to listen to their podcast and drive their own numbers, that type of thing? So those are some of the considerations that have happened in the past. So really thinking clearly through your impact to the community. That is the number one thing that the Community Initiative Subcommittee will be looking for. For this round of funding, all of these initiatives must be completed by March 31st of next year. And if you are receiving funding from Alberta Innovates for your initiative, so whether it's through their Economic Development Fund or some kind of other fund where you're putting dollars towards the initiative, you are not eligible to apply for this funding. And the reason for that is because this funding comes from Alberta Innovates. So technically that's double dipping. So keeping that in mind as well, if you're planning to apply for other grants. And I'm going to talk a little bit about leverage dollars and matching funds in a minute. So the key thing, again, when we talk about for-profit or startups or business groups that are looking to apply for this, is that it is not intended for startup activities or business development. So if you're looking to pilot something for an app that you're developing, this wouldn't be a good fit because that's a business development or a startup activity. Where we want to see the impact is out towards the entire community. And I'm going to say that over and over and over again so that it's like, if you decide to go through with an application, just keep thinking, where's the impact to the community and how am I demonstrating that in my application? I'm going to stop there. Any first questions based on what I've talked about? Software for, I'm assuming that's community leagues. Yeah. It depends on what you would be using the software for. We have in the past, I'll give you an example of something that we have funded in terms of a software. The Canadian Open Data Society last year held a series of workshops to help not-for-profits learn to use artificial intelligence software to make their operations more efficient. And so we did pay for some licenses for that software for a month for those organizations and businesses that decided to attend. And so that's a situation where purchasing that software became a larger benefit to the community. And so again, if you can demonstrate how the purchase of that software is going to benefit the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. So not just the greater community, but the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. That's how the decisions will be made. I hope that answers your question. Can a session for AI cloning to reduce manual tasks focus for university students and university profs qualify for this? That is a very loaded question. Potentially, what I would say is that when it comes to post-secondary institutes, they have their own funding available through various entities to benefit their students and staff. And so where you would really want to take this is think entrepreneur innovation. So what type of students are these? How is this creating entrepreneurship or creating opportunities for entrepreneurship? What is the impact to the entrepreneurship innovation ecosystem? And again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record saying that. Um, a lot of times when we've had applications from post-secondaries, uh, they have been declined because there's no clear benefit outside of that post-secondary. And so I can give you an example of something that we have funded. So last year, McEwen hosted a series of inclusive roundtables for the entrepreneurship community. And so we funded that because they were demonstrating an impact outside of the post-secondary itself. Next question. Can we collaborate with newcomer centers for a series of workshops or some NGOs working with different communities? I would absolutely 100% recommend collaboration in any way, shape, or form that you can. It's actually a part of the scoring metrics. So I am going to show you the scoring metrics later on. And so the more collaboration, if you can bring in 2 partners, 3 partners, that is preferred. You will not score as highly if you don't have those collaborations. And in some cases, it may actually prohibit you from being funded without them. It says travel expenses are allowed for the impact stream. So is that only for bringing people to Edmonton? You know what? I'm going to address that because I talk about that really specifically in the part where I go into eligible expenses. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on. I know there's more questions in the chat, but I'm going to address a lot of them as I go. So I'm going to keep going, and then if I don't answer your question, then we'll come back to it. So I'm first going to go into the micro sponsorship stream. So this is the up to, and I say that very clearly, up to $1,000. So if you are applying for something for a sponsorship, so let's say you already have a sponsorship package for your event, your request in the grant application should be commensurate with what your sponsorship packages are. We've had applications where people have applied for funding that is over and above what they're asking for sponsorship, and we will check. Especially if that information is out there, we will look and see. So just because there's $1,000, you don't necessarily have to apply for $1,000 if that's not what you're looking for. I would encourage you to really show where you're being effective with your costs and where those funds will uh, specifically go to, rather than just saying we want $1,000 because there might be $1,000 available. So for eligible expenses, we look at things like materials. So any material cost with the design and production of whatever the conference or event is. If you need pamphlets done, or postcards, or a little bit of swag, or whatever it is, that you want to have as hard materials for the conference or the initiative technology. So if you're paying for a short span of some kind of CRM or something to make the conference run more smoothly, like a lot of conferences will have a third-party app that they take and use for that. So that's eligible marketing. So anything that falls into the marketing category, like social media, um, Google ads, that type of thing. And then food and venue. So now again, we're only talking about up to $1,000 here. So you don't have to submit like a big, huge budget because it's like $20 here or $100 there. But just understanding that these are things when after the event is over, we may ask you to submit receipts or proof of what you did spend the money on. So you want to be cognizant of what is things that you are allowed to spend the money on. And then AV equipment, anything venue related, things that wouldn't be eligible are things like insurance for the venue, or tobacco, alcohol, those types of things. And all of that is the other thing I'll mention is that we do actually have a full package on the website. It's a PDF package, and it outlines everything I'm talking about and more. So it will answer a lot of your questions. It also has eligible and ineligible expense charts so you can compare them to your budgets. There's a budget template. There is templates for letters of support. Everything, hopefully, that you need to put together a well-done application should be available for you. And if something is not available, please do let me know and we can get you that information. So the micro sponsorship stream, again, rather than have you writing a big long report at the end of it, we just have basic KPIs that everyone will be expected to report on. And this is a list of them. So like really simple things like obviously the number of attendees, the type of activity that was done through the initiative, which the partners were that you engaged or other stakeholders. You know, we want to know some diversity information of the demographics of people who attended. We want to, you know, maybe have a nice testimonial about whatever it is that people got out of their time at your initiative. And then you get to pick a qualitative indicator such as, you know, new connections made or number of follow-up meetings generated. So we want to know that there's values coming out of these opportunities that you're creating for people. And then we ask for reports to be submitted 30 days after the end of your event. So we're scoring these, again, super simple. You're scored on 5 different metrics. They are alignment with the ERIN mission and values. Again, that we talked about that earlier. It's in the package if you don't remember what they are. We want to know ecosystem impact. We want to see collaboration, the timeliness and relevance of the event, and then how the funds will be used. And it's just as simple. The committee goes through and scores it 0 to 5 and then makes a recommendation on whether or not to fund the initiative. Oops, that went backward. Okay, I'm going to stop there on the micro sponsorship stream. Any questions specifically on that? Yes. So just as a reminder, the micro sponsorship stream is an ongoing intake until the fund is completely dispersed. So if we get, you know, 10 or 15 applications in the next 6 weeks that are all great, that may be it for the year. I like honestly, in the past, I've had maybe a dozen requests a year for this type of funding. But this is new for us, so I honestly I don't have a baseline to tell you what to anticipate. So the earlier you can get the application in is the better. And yes, Hina, you can apply for both, but not for the same initiative. So you can't stack these on top of each other. But if you're successful in getting a micro sponsorship, it wouldn't prevent you from being able to apply for the impact stream for something else that you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the impact stream. So this is up to $10,000. And so when we talk about eligible expenses for the impact stream, this is where we have, because the amounts are quite a bit larger, we look a little bit more in depth into eligible expenses in the budget. So labor costs, so for anyone whose time is being compensated to run the initiative, and that could be staff, that could be contractors, that could be photographers, anything like that. It can only be up to 25% of your total funding request. So if you're requesting $10,000, no more than $2,500 can be requested to compensate someone for their time, whether that's you or anyone else in your company or organization. If there's some sort of professional training and development required in order to, you know, effectively execute the initiative, that is something that we will consider. I don't have an example of something where I've seen that in the past, but say, for example, you know, you're going to host an event on a platform that you've never used before. And so you need a little bit of training as to just how to get that platform up and running, but it's going to have impact because it's going to help you to measure your outcomes a lot better. That to me seems like something that we would consider pretty reasonably. Hina, yes, you have a question.
Yeah, actually, I can put an example for this. I actually like we do some trainings and we require some trainers to conduct that. And we do the training of trainers, like I'm a TOT for that project. So I think that will be a kind of, professional training and development.
Yeah, yeah. So like and if you were hosting something that was, say, a monthly something workshop over or a weekly workshop over a 6 week period, that type of thing, and the person
Yeah.
needs to be certified in
Hmm.
something. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Material costs, so same as the other one. So any hard materials that you need in order to complete the initiative are eligible, marketing and promotion. There was a question about travel earlier, and I have a little asterisk next to this. So I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So when it comes to travel, this is not to compensate for you or members of your team or anyone really to fly into Edmonton for the initiative. So it's not for you to bring in a keynote speaker. It's not to pay for accommodation for staff that maybe work in a different city that you're going to bring in for the initiative. Again, think impact to entrepreneurs and the innovation ecosystem. So the impact here that we're looking for in terms of travel is if you want to host an initiative where maybe you're taking a delegation of entrepreneurs somewhere. So one of the things that we funded in the past was a initiative through the Edmonton Screen, where they took a delegation of game companies from here in Edmonton to Gamescom in Germany. And that, highlighted the work that is being done by game developers here in Edmonton and put us a little bit on the global map and gave those companies some exposure in terms of the work that they're doing. So that's the type of travel that we would look at potentially supporting. Again, broken record, impact to the innovation entrepreneurs and the ecosystem. So again, software, completely eligible. Venue fees. So we do have a little bit of an asterisk next to the venue fees. When we get into these larger amounts, we cap the food and beverage up to $35 per person per day. I typically, when I host events, my outcome has been between $18 to $25 per person per day. So $35 per person per day is pretty reasonable. You can do some decent food for that amount. And then with venue fees, we want people to be looking at venues where where the need for that venue, depending on the cost of it, is clearly demonstrated through the application. So the example I like to give is NatHacks. So it's a 4 day hackathon, all day, all night. They bring in 300 students and they need space where they can have a main meeting area. And then they need breakout rooms, and then they need places for people to maybe lay down and have a snooze. And, it's sort of like they can't just host in any old location. And so the cost of a venue for something like that might be higher because they have very specific needs that they need to fill. Going and booking the Westin or something like that just for the sake of hosting an event where there may be something more cost effective is something that the committee will scrutinize a little bit more heavily. We are always happy to try to create partnerships or create introductions between organizations or people who are looking to host events and event venues. We've got a few that we've worked with in the past to help sort of minimize some of those costs. So this is to say, if you're going to submit a $10,000 application and all 10,000 of that is going to go to a venue, you you better be able to demonstrate why that amount of money is needed for that venue. So for the Impact Stream, our key performance indicators work a little bit differently. So we do have a group of them that are mandatory. That'll just be like your sort of check boxes, right? Your number of attendees, the different sectors represented, the demographics, and the breakdown of the participants. Pretty standard stuff for any kind of initiative where you're bringing people together. And then if it's applicable, we'll ask you to report on things like the number of collaborations. So again, we're looking for that impact outside of the initiative itself, number of referrals made to stakeholders and ecosystem partners, number of connections made, follow-up meetings. And these are just examples. Like these are things that I've seen people include in their applications in the past, but they're not necessarily things that you may have things that are more relevant to the initiative that you're hosting that you want to include. And then that's why we have these custom KPIs. So we will ask you to develop 2 to 4 custom KPIs that are relevant to your initiative. So the things that I have here are just examples like job creation, revenue growth, investment readiness, access to education or information, um, entrepreneurial progression through their entrepreneurial journey, those types of things. But really, that can look like anything because this is your opportunity to show where you will be creating impact to the community with your initiative. Question in the chat, does a business startup health app that wants to host a workshop where a health practitioner is invited to educate the public on health issues qualify? Yeah, that's a really great question. So sort of going back to, and the reason why I'm not giving you straightforward yes or no answers is because it really is in the positioning of the application. And the other caveat that I'll give you is that I have an entirely new committee this year. So last year I had worked with the same folks for 2 years, and so I knew what they were going to want to know. I knew what questions to anticipate. This year I don't know the group as well yet, so I'm not 100% sure on the types of things that they will want to know. But what I would say is it might qualify, but what you would have to look at is if it's your app for your startup business, um, how are you going to make this so that it's not just um, a marketing opportunity for you and your app? And then with those health educators coming to educate the public on health issues, how are entrepreneurs in the innovation ecosystem being impacted by that? And how will you go about creating that impact? So it's possible, I would say that in that particular case, you'd have a little bit of work to do to sort of figure out if this is the right fit. Because if those aren't the outcomes you're looking to create, I would suggest don't create an event just to fit the grant. Create an event and then find the funding that's the right fit. Okay, so the last little bit here is the evaluation. So I tell people all the time, we have this money, I can't give it back. I want to give it to you. And so I want you to understand exactly how you will be scored on these. And in the PDF package for the community initiatives, the actual rubric is in there. So under each of these sort of criteria, there are individual things that the committee will look for that they will score on. Those are all laid out for you. So you can sort of reverse engineer your application based on that. And for a lot of people, this is the first grant that you might be applying for, or, it's a smaller amount of money than, a larger kind of grant that you might go out there for 50 or $100,000. So we want you to have a good experience. We want you to be successful and get an understanding of how these things are scored. So again, if you have questions about any of those pieces, I would be happy to try to answer those and work through them. But there are 8 criteria that you will be scored on. So the first is description and execution. Really simply, you have to outline what the initiative is and how you're going to execute it. People submit timelines for these. I've seen people submit races. I've seen people submit all kinds of things. Really, we just want to see that you have a really clear vision of what the initiative is and how you're going to go about carrying it out. The next one is initiative need. So this is the one where I see people score low more often than not. So the initiative need is where you're identifying that what you're doing is either A, different than anything that already exists, or B, if it is similar to something that exists, how are you reaching a different audience or presenting the information or the impact in a different way? And it can't be just because, well, we're going to do it better than so and so does it. Ideally, where full marks are awarded is that you have some sort of research. It can be you can conduct this on your own. I've seen companies conduct it on their own, but ideally it's something where there is already an ecosystem research study that's been done of some kind, whether it's, through the federal government or the provincial government or any of the sort of startup ESOs out there. And these reports exist. They exist everywhere on the internet. We have some that we've done. There's the rainforest study. We do annual studies. They're on our website. So these are the types of things that you want to use as data to support the fact that there is a need for whatever it is you're doing. And I will say that the committee is really looking for, which leads into the next one, that impact. So your need informs the impact. So if these two things are not connected, and sometimes they're not when we get applications, that's where the committee gets confused. They're not quite sure, what the purpose is or what you're setting out to accomplish. So the example I give a lot of times is in measurable impact. Sometimes people will put DEI metrics, but it has no connection to the actual need that's been identified. So, vanity metrics for the sake of just measuring something, we want to see how these things tie in together. And then the fourth criteria is stakeholder engagement. So we look and prefer to see other people participating in this with you. Ideally, there's monetary contribution. So we don't love being the sole funder for something. We want to see that other organizations or other entities have come together. A great example of this is, the YEG Startup Awards, for example. We've funded that in the past, but then there's also, some startups come in with sponsorship, MNP comes in with sponsorship. Like it's a really, truly a community effort that's coming together to fund this thing. So those are the sorts of collaborations and stakeholder engagement that we're looking for. That support can also be in kind. So maybe someone's, the university or one of the post-secondaries is giving you some space in kind, those types of things. It just shows that there are other people invested in that initiative and the outcome of it. So those are the first four. Are there any questions around that? Okay. I'm going to keep going. What time do we got here? We have 15 minutes left. Okay. So the last four, sustainability plan. So we want to see that you've thought through, like past this year, how will this initiative continue beyond ERIN funding? And maybe that sustainability plan involves ongoing funding from the ERIN, but eventually down the road, you're looking to apply for other types of economic development grants, or, the city of Edmonton has had some community initiatives grants in the past. The Edmonton Arts Council has had initiatives in the past where they have funded things. So, giving thought to what else exists out there beyond this initial initiative where you can go out and say, yes, we've proven out what we've been able to do, and now we want to do this differently, create more impact in the years to come, and here's how we plan to do that. Your budget allocations, so keeping in check with what is eligible and what is not eligible. If you are receiving in-kind or monetary contributions from other people, please include that in your budget. There's a budget template on the website for you to use. You don't have to you can download it and fill it out yourself, but use something like that just so that we can see really clearly what your total budget is, what you're going to allocate the ERIN funding for, and what other people are covering as well. Applicant competency. So this is just, we want to see that you can do what you say you're going to do. So have you hosted something like this in the past? Do you have letter support to help bolster your application? So we do ask for at least 2 letters of support for a good application. And again, there's a template on the website if you need one to send to people who are going to write a letter of support for you. I've had people send me their resumes. I've had people send videos of things that they've done in the past. So really, you know, can you carry out an initiative, where you're in charge of thousands of public dollars? That's what the committee wants to know. And finally, inclusivity and equity. So we want you to understand, how you're impacting underserved communities or people. And again, I really encourage you to think beyond tokenism when it comes to this type of thing. So considering things like your venue, is it accessible? How will you ensure that people outside of your core group of um, demographic are going to know about this event or even be able to access it. And that needs to go beyond, I'm going to put it on LinkedIn, right? Are you going to send targeted invites to different community members or to different, and again, this is all just examples, but we really want to see that you're making an effort to include some of those folks that wouldn't necessarily be included in whatever initiative that you're doing. It can also be an initiative that is purely designed to meet the needs of an underserved community within the innovation ecosystem. We have funded things like that as well. So for example, last year we funded the Queer Tech initiative where they held some meetups here in Edmonton. We funded the Black Business Ventures Association showcase. So there's opportunities for those types of things as well. The last thing that I will say about this is that just because you apply for $10,000, if you are successful, you may not receive $10,000. So the amount of money that you received is commensurate with the percentage of your score that you receive on your application. So for example, you apply for $10,000, you receive 60% on your score, you will receive up to $6,000. That amount is discretionary by the committee. So they can go, okay, well, we see that you're eligible to receive 6,000. However, you know, we feel like your venue costs are too high and this could be done this way. Um, so we're going to say it's 5,500, something like that, which does happen. So prepare yourself for that as well. Wherever there is something where we haven't provided the full amount asked for, or if you've been declined, I will give you the reasons. So this isn't just, you're not going to just receive a thanks, but no thanks type of email. I'm going to reach out to you and say, this is the amount that we've awarded you, and this is why, or these you've been declined, and this is why. And I'm happy to give whatever feedback I can. Again, for many people, this is the first level of grants that they're applying for. We want you to be successful in the future and or with our funding or anyone else's funding. And so we really want this process to be transparent for you. So we've even had folks come and sit down with committee members afterwards and been like, tell me how I can make this application better. So just so you know, these are all options for you, regardless of the outcome. And regardless of the outcome, because you're an ERIN member, when you apply, we will promote your event and we will, do our best to elevate it in the community, put it on our newsletter, put it on our social media. We still want you to succeed as our members, even if the funding isn't a good fit. Okay, before I move on to the last little piece, any last questions? I saw one. Does the trainer cost come under labor cost? Um, can you elaborate on that, Hina?
Yeah, actually, we have some training programs, and we outsource trainers for those. So, for this project, which I'm thinking to apply for, we need some trainers to be outsourced because those are not specialties with us, right? So, some of the trainers in specific domain of the business. So, I was just thinking, whether this comes under labor cost, or we can pay a separate amount to the trainer. Um, when we'll be designing, we should know this information actually.
Yes, yeah. So an initiative that we funded last year through NABI is called the Concept Profit, the C2P workshops. And so they had an external trainer that they hired who had developed this program to come in and teach their entrepreneurs that. That was up to 25% of the total cost could be allotted for their work. So the thing to think about again is that we don't want to be the sole funder because you might say, well, that's not a lot of money to cover someone's time, but there should be other funders participating in
Mm.
this where you can, divide those costs with other dollars being put towards the activity.
Yeah, Janice.
Mhm.
Actually, we have collaborations with different um, two NGOs and a group of different community women because we want to lead this project with the women. So, they keep on contributing. Like sometimes they give us venue, sometimes maybe they contribute in the marketing cost, or sometimes they save over cost by we they are the group of thousands of members, so we we can choose participants from them. So it is both, it's a contributive model and collaborative sort of thing.
Yeah, beautiful. That's amazing. Yes, and that's exactly what the fund is designed to support is places where, because again, you have to think the regional innovation networks, part of our mandate is to bring different organizations and entities together from within the ecosystem to support our entrepreneurs. So the more that you can bring in other organizations, the better. That's awesome. So timeline wise, so with the micro grant, the micro sponsorship, that is just open until the money is dispersed. For this one, we are doing a timed intake. So the application portal opened on April 28th. It will close on June 23rd. I'll give you all till midnight. If you could you not wait till like June 23rd at 10 p.m.? I would love to have a few just in the queue to that the committee can start to deliberate on. And the reason we do it this way is because we want to ensure that we're sort of seeing a nice wide swath of comparable initiatives coming in at the same time. Otherwise, we've seen in the past where, we've done ongoing intake for this, and the committee might see something and they think, well, that's really great, but what if like how do we know to give them the full $10,000? Like what if something comes along in the future? And so this way we can gauge what all is coming in at the same time. The other thing I will tell you is that we will do a second intake in September for this. So if now's not the right time, or you just don't have all your ducks in a row for an initiative that maybe you're planning for early January of next year or February, um, then you don't feel like you have to get it in this time. We will do another intake in September to catch those initiatives that are in the later part of 2026 and the early part of 2027. And so after the portal closes, the committee will have a month to deliberate on all of the applications that we received. And then by the end of July, you will receive a communication as to whether or not your application was successful or not. Okay, so that is the end of my formal presentation. I see another chat or another question in the chat. Are other RINs offering the same funding? And if so, can you apply to different RINs? So The Edmonton and the Calgary Regional Innovation Networks are the only two that have an open community initiatives grant like this. And so I don't know all the specifics of the Calgary one, and I can connect you with the Calgary RIN manager if you like, um, to to sort of see what their specifics are. But I would assume that like ours has to impact the Edmonton region, theirs would have to impact the Calgary region. I have seen individuals who have applied for and been successful in both the ERIN and the Calgary Innovation Coalition. So it's not possible, but you couldn't stack them because again, all this funding is coming from Alberta Innovates. And so that is sort of again that like double dipping. Uh, if there's something you want to do rurally, um, we do have our rural RINs do meet on a regular basis, and we do have more of an effort where, as urban RINs, we try to support the work that's going on rurally and get a better understanding of how we can do that. And so that is also something that we don't have a formal fund or application process through that we would just look at as a group and say, how can we support the things that are going on where there's impact to the rural entrepreneurs. Any other questions? Okay, well, the Michael just put has put lots of links, I should say, in the chat. So if you want to go and check out that package, it is on the ERIN website. And like I said, if you have questions, you can send me an email. I won't be able to sit down with every individual person that is applying, but I'm happy to just take a brief perusal of any applications before you hit submit. Again, I'm not in the decision making, like I'm part of the process, but I don't vote on these. And so the more that I can understand the initiative itself and try to answer questions for the committee, the better. So I'm happy to just take a look at them. And when you submit them, I will take a look at them first before I fire them off to the committee. And I will try to ask any clarifying questions in advance just to make that process a little bit more frictionless for everybody. So if you see an email from me, asking clarifying questions, please uh, try to get back to me as soon as you can on that. But what I'll do then is let you folks go for the day. I'll make this recording available so that if you need it to reference back to, I will send you a link to it. We'll put it on YouTube or something. Thank you, Saida. I feel the same way about you. And then again, if you have questions, you know how to reach me through LinkedIn or through my email, which is janice@edmontonren.ca. And I'm happy to help however I can. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.